morning, everyone. I'm packed with energy, so I hope that you bring that energy and that excitement to this session. Please use the chat room. I do have it up. I have multiple devices going on to make this as interactive as possible for you. So I'm just really hoping that despite any technical difficulties we may have, because this is new to a lot of us, that we'll be able to get through. And I promise you that no matter what happens today, we'll make sure that you receive the information, even if I have to record it offline or whatever the case is. So no worries. You don't have to worry about a thing. Welcome to Marketing Matrix That Matter. And my hope for you today is that by the end of this class, you will have some tools in your toolbox that will help you better navigate your marketing, but also your organization as we focus on adapting to change throughout today's conference. So please feel free to utilize the chat section. I see a number of people are utilizing it already. Hello, Helen. I think it's Benita got in. Janae, Heather, I think, was from Annapolis. So thank you guys for joining us today. It's truly exciting that we're able to do this virtually. It is saddening that we aren't able to be in person, but at least we're still able to do this, right? So feel free to use the chat function to discuss anything that you would like to discuss. There's also a Q&A feature for questions that you can utilize. And we have our moderators today, which are Davida and Kelsey, who will be assisting in these areas. So if I miss something, they will definitely catch it and let me know. And we can just do questions and discussion throughout. So Kelsey, Davida, if anything comes up, feel free to just pause me for a moment and we can move on there. So let's move forward. My name is Smith. This is a little bit about me, but I won't go in too deep. It's a lot about me, so I won't go in too deep. But what I can say is thanks to these handy dandy little devices that we have here and utilizing the app, all you have to do is click into my bio and you'll see all the information there as well. My LinkedIn is there. So if you want to contact me, you can contact me via LinkedIn or email me or whatever. Feel free on the app, and I'll be on the app several days after this conference. If you have any questions or anything, or you want to talk about anything in particular, feel free to contact me. I will let you know that I have about 15 plus years of experience in marketing, and that's in the for-profit and the nonprofit arenas. And I've worked with projects both large and small across the US. So I currently do that through Because Marketing, which focuses on providing communications and marketing solutions for organizations dedicated to community enhancement and social improvement, which I know a lot of you fall under, especially under the nonprofit arena. But in my other life, I also am and act as the marketing director for Intrepid, which is a full service IT provider focusing on cybersecurity, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, in addition to unified communication. So that's why when all the technical issues started happening, I was like, well, I'm in my realm. So my hope is that I will be able to take all of this knowledge that I have and be able to share that with you so that you will be able to take at least one thing, just one thing from this training and use it in a positive and impactful way as we work towards adapting and changing in today's climate. So why are metrics important? Well, because, right, that's what I always say, because like management thinker Peter Drucker says, you can't manage what you can't measure. So many times organizations measure the impact of their service and their finances, grants that are coming through, people that they've supported, but for some unknown reason, marketing seems to just slide underneath everything else. And instead, what we do is we start to lean on intuition to drive those actions. So that's the premise behind the quote, is to make sure that you can measure things so that you can manage it. And you want to make sure that the actions that you're taking can be defined and tracked. So metrics, right, can give you an insight that you need to your target market's behavior so that you can motivate your donors, your sponsors, your volunteers, and anyone else that has some type of relationship with your organization to take the actions that you want them to take. And in that way, you become an influencer. Hello, Tiffany. But from behind the scenes, right? Because everybody wants to be an influencer. That's the whole key word this year is influencer. So what we want to do is make you an influencer, but just letting you know that you're not going to be viral in front of everybody. You'll just be behind the scenes. Okay. All right. Still, you just don't want to pick anything that was given to you or is just available because you may not know what to do with it. So first you need to determine where the change is happening and then determine where the adapting needs to take place. And what better way to do that than to set up metrics that will provide you the answers to what you're looking for so that you can make data driven decisions and not just make general decisions. I cannot tell you how many times I have gone into an organization or worked with an organization, and the people in the organization are so eager to do the activity of marketing, whether it's putting out the ads, designing the graphics, doing the event, but then miss out on the planning phases associated with the marketing itself. And I understand the excitement behind that. But what happens when you do that is you don't get the data that you need to evaluate whether the goals were achieved. And so that leads to confusion. You get so much data and have no idea how to sort through it. And so you become overwhelmed. You have no benchmarks. And so they just don't look at the outcomes, but they're trying to guess, whether it's working or whether it's not working. And in turn, you end up wasting time and depleting resources such as money, or you're completely successful, which is a good thing, and you have a great amount of data, but then you don't evaluate it. And so you have no idea of what exactly worked in the whole scheme of things. So rather than adapting to increase momentum of the outcomes that were successful, you just keep repeating the same process over and over again. And that may not be bad, but what happens is when that process stops working, you can't then go back and evaluate what tactics need to be adjusted so that you can once again become successful. So now in the nonprofit world, I know that we wear many hats, right? And it's completely understandable why planning kind of gets skipped over or has limited time associated with it, because we're developing our next fundraisers, we're reaching out to donors and sponsors, we're coming up with content, both written and video, we're designing graphics, and of course everybody's trying to go viral, right? But what ends up happening is that time becomes wasted on the back end, and then you can't evaluate anything. And like we said before, money becomes wasted. And it's kind of just like throwing it at the wall and seeing if it's going to work. And so first, we want to look at how we can change that. And I know this because this was me. So I had to educate myself, just as you are doing today, to find a better way to build a foundation around the goals that the organization is trying to achieve, and to determine tactics utilized that would really help us achieve those goals and objectives. Now, I say the organization's goals and objectives, not my goals and objectives. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So I'm a big HubSpot fan. I utilize it in pretty much everything that I do. So you'll see HubSpot come up throughout this periodically. But according to HubSpot, which is a software company focused on marketing, sales, and customer service, bad data is costing businesses an astonishing 15% to 25% of revenue a year. So looking at it in a larger environment, bad data is costing you money that you don't have, right? Because we're in the nonprofit industry. We need all the money that we can get for the services that we're trying to provide. So we're hopefully by the end of this class going to stop all that. And especially in today's day and age, there really is no excuse, because you literally have everything you need right at your fingertips. So we are at the point now where people can tell your habits, your hobbies, what you care for, if you have kids, how old your kids are, if you're married, sometimes if you're married happily or if you're married unhappily. And we can do this by just looking and tracking one item. And I want you guys to utilize the chat box and let me know if anybody knows what that one item is. And I can let you know that you use it all the time. Interact with me, interact with me. Anybody? Anybody at all? Anybody have anything in the chat box? Facebook? No, but you use this for Facebook. That's a very good answer. What do you use to log into Facebook? Your cell phone, your phone. Oh, I mean, yeah, you do log into Facebook. Well, how do you sign in? Let me ask you that question. Because you do use your phone to log into Facebook, but you can also do it on the desktop. What do they ask you for? What's the first thing that they ask you for? Google. What is the first thing Google asks you for? Your email. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Your email address. Think about how many metrics are attached to your email address alone. We pretty much use it and give it for everything. Some people have an email address simply just to give out so that their other emails don't get spammed or have a whole bunch of things coming to it. You're asked in the store. You're asked when you sign on, when you opt into comment. That email address can pretty much tell me whatever it is I need to know about you. I remember utilizing a service one time. We were looking at a demo and they were like, give me your email address. They could tell how much I was getting paid, what hobbies I was into, what I liked, all of that stuff simply from that one thing. So let's try to leverage that. Let's say you need a sponsor, right? Your data from your email address can tell you that that sponsor has small kids, lives and works in Charles County, and is an active participant in the Chamber of Commerce simply by looking at what he subscribes to, where he shops, what type of information he opts into. So if he's opting into your newsletter, what links he's clicking on, right? Because that tells you the content that he's interested in. You can look at the open rate to see what time he usually opens his emails, and they may be Thursdays at 9 a.m. And we could say, okay, well, he's opening his emails Thursday at 9 a.m. because he looks at it prior to actually starting his day of work. We could say that, but that's what intuition tells us. But then I can go into my dashboard, right? And I can see that the metrics that I have tell me that when I send an email, regardless as to whether it's sent at 3 p.m. or if it's sent at 12 p.m. or if it's sent at 9 in the morning, that he usually opens his emails at 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. So, and I just want to point out, there are some people, it seems like in Hoover that are waiting. So you might want to tell them, Davida and Kelsey, that it might be easier if they join via Zoom. So I see some people still trying to get in. So with that information alone, I know that, hold on, wait a minute. Maybe I should put an ad in Macaroni Kids Online's e-blast, right? Because I need sponsors or I'm having an event that is family friendly. And I know the people that I'm looking for have kids. And then also, I can specifically focus on the Charles County area because let's say it's a Charles County event and he lives in Charles County. So he may not necessarily be going outside the area. So I save money there, right? Because I'm not doing all of Maryland. I'm targeting my advertisements. And then if I'm a child focused organization, I can utilize this information that I'm gathering by seeing what he's opting into, by pulling at the heartstrings, by sending him stories in regards to what it is he's interested in. So I also know that maybe I should set aside funding to attend some chamber events because he's an active member in the chamber. And lastly, that I should be sending emails probably to him, scheduling them out around 8:45 a.m. because when he opens his email at 9 a.m., then I don't have to worry about getting caught in that spam traction where people come to work and they have 25, 30, sometimes 40, depending on what's, if you have one email, maybe 100 emails to go through, and it's getting lost in there. It's going to put me right at the top of the email. So I may be the one of the first things he sees. This helps you cater your content, your social media posts, your e-blast, your mailer, and then helps you further the relationship in hopes that he or she may give more or get further involved with your organization and go from that potential lead to then a donor to then a board member, all from establishing goals and setting up metrics, obtain and then making those data driven decisions. And I just want to point out that what you see on your screen now is what we call personas. And this is a whole different class. Hopefully, I'll be able to talk about later on, but establishing what your target market looks like so that you know how to get to them. So we see for this particular one, You have a person who is 34 years old, who is a software developer. He's single with kids because that's who I'm targeting if I am a child for focused organization, or want someone maybe in the software development space, or I'm looking for younger people as opposed to an older generation, whatever the case is. And that he does focus on family life and things like this. What this also tells me is that, okay, maybe I want to develop the relationship with that person. And so I want to send this person who has donated or has been a sponsor to my event a gift. Well, I automatically know that he loves Apple, Starbucks, and Nike. And so while I may not buy him Nike shoes, what I may do is send him a Starbucks gift card. And so that is kind of how this will help you gauge where to put your ads and how to address your particular target market. But let's get back to metrics, right? All right, let's see here.
Sheba,
Yes,
we have one question in the chat.
sure.
One person who joined a little bit later was wondering, for the page that you just left, is
Uh-huh.
that data coming from some form of program or app? I know you were speaking in it in terms of metrics, but for the
Yep,
actual profile,
yep,
does that
not a
exist?
problem. Absolutely. So what happens is you can brainstorm what you want your target market to be, and you can develop this, and then you start to look a little further. So I can say that it takes a lot, it takes a lot of research. So what you can do is you can look at your sponsors that you have now, or your customer base. For profits, it would be a customer base. Find those clients or those sponsors or donors that you have a good relationship with, and interview them. And then what happens is you start to see and develop trends. And we're going to talk about trends a little bit more. And you take those trends and then you start to develop your persona. So if you see that, oh, well, most of my donors do have small kids, you can put that in your persona. Or if you see, oh, well, most of the donors I have are really in leadership positions, you can do that in your persona. And you can utilize your persona for anything, right? You can have personas for people that you're trying to get on your board of directors. You can have personas for people that you want to be sponsors or people that you want to attend an event. Most likely they will all fall into the same realm, but if they don't fall into the same realm, then you would target them differently. Did that answer the question? You can just put a no, yes or no, or if you need additional information on that. So it does take research, setting up kind of like focus groups to see where people stand, and then you want to utilize those trends. So it's kind of more research than anything. I hope that answered that. All right. So moving on, every action you make, you can be attached to some kind of metric, which is collecting data. And you need to have a way to leverage that. So, by establishing metrics that matter, you can gather and analyze marketing data for decision making purposes. You can find data points that can be used to draw conclusions about your decisions. You can stop making decisions based on observations and experiences, or just using intuition to help you decide what direction to go in. And you can start monitoring those trends that we were talking about previously to make those data driven decisions while building a data driven culture, because it is a culture shift for your organization. It does take time. And so, what you have to do is start building that culture and getting people thinking in that light. Now, in the nonprofit industry, you already kind of are in that light because you have to get data on your grants, your finances, and things of that nature. So now it's taking that same mind frame and concept and then switching it over to your marketing activity. It will help build gaps, or sorry, help bridge gaps between teams. It will help support your claims, tactics, and efforts to upper management and boards by showing those trends and patterns. A lot of times it's like, I'm doing this, but I can't prove that it's actually working, or I can't prove the work. They just see the action of the work. So the data will actually help you set those key performance indicators, and we'll talk about that just a little bit later on, that will allow you to then take it to your upper management or to the leadership team and let them know exactly where the changes need to occur and what is going on. It will create transparency. It will provide understanding to your leads and target markets, such as we did in the last little portion. And then it will also help you answer the question, what is happening and what will possibly happen in the future? So then you begin to start forecasting. And we're going to try to make this as least complicated as possible. So today in the time, we're just going to discuss some methods and matrix that may work for you specifically. So I have 4 points, and then I'll be out of your way. And hopefully you'll be able to go on and enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of the conference. So we already talked about why metrics matter. But what we're also going to do is discuss which metrics matter to your organization, because each organization is different, and the metrics that may work for one organization may not necessarily be the metrics that will work for another organization, because the goals are different and they change from organization to organization. So the approach will have to differ as well. Although there may be some basic concepts that we can utilize that will go across the board. So we'll talk about some of that today. We'll also discuss not only what metrics to consider, but how to monitor them and make them work for you. And then lastly, how to incorporate metrics to achieve the goals that you're trying to obtain. And then hopefully that will drive your growth, and then you'll be able to crush those quotas that we want. And then your supervisors, your boards, and even yourself will be just excited. So let's go ahead and get started. So at the end, the hope is that you will go from this young lady or young man, remember her, just confused, didn't know what was going on, to this, to being confident, informed, productive, and effective. All right. So let me ask you this question. Now, I'm not sure, and it might depend on if you're on a desktop, and we tried to test this out, so I'm not necessarily sure if it's going to work or not, but if not, we can still utilize the chat section. We're just going to do a brief poll. And if you are on a desktop, you can kind of go into the poll section. And Kelsey, I'm not sure, are you able to see the poll section?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So if you can just go into the poll section, you should see 2 questions there. Please let me know if you do not see the questions there, and we can just utilize the chat function. If you are on a cell phone, go ahead and just utilize that chat function, because I don't think that it's going to allow us, we tried it before, to actually send that poll. But I want to know who in this room has looked at their organization's strategic plan in the last 6 months. So if you see the poll section, please answer that. And I'm just going to see if I can go over to this poll. Okay, I see some responses coming in. And then there's another question there that says, who has looked at their strategic plan in the last 12 months? So I have some people that say, no, they have not looked at their plan. And some people who say that they have. So I'm so glad. I'm so glad you guys are looking at these plans, because basically that's everything. All of your metrics kind of go along with that. So if you have not looked at your plan, because I know that sometimes when they're developed, we just take them and we just set them aside, right? And we never look at them again. I need you to pull them out. You need to look at your organization's plan, because it outlines the goals that you are trying to achieve. When you're doing your marketing activities, it's not just, oh, I think that this will work, or I think that I'm going to do this and we'll see some traction. Is that traction truly matched up with your organization's mission and their objectives to help push the organization forward when you're looking at the big picture? And so you're trying to achieve goals corporately, not just within the department itself. So you want your strategic plan to be the center of everything you're doing. And to hit the target, you need to know what goals are there, so that you can establish your metrics around those goals that the organization is trying to achieve. So your first step in establishing metrics that matters is setting up your goals, and looking at that strategic plan. From there, you can take those goals and formulate a marketing plan or your marketing goals. And then the actions and the tactics and everything will come after that. They'll correlate with the goals that you're trying to establish. And so that strategy and these goals is really what we're looking for to move forward. But you want to make sure that you have a process when doing that as well. And we're gonna take a goal and we're gonna look at that process. So the goal that we have is, I want to increase engagement on my social media channels. Great. You want to increase engagement on your social media channels. But really, when you're looking at this goal, it's kind of vague, right? Because how many social media channels do you have? What type of engagement are you trying to increase? So when coming back to look at it, let's just say, okay, well, I want a 2% increase on my social media channels. Okay, so then even more questions come up, right? Will this increase give you what you need to meet the initial goals that were established? how long will it take to reach that 2% increase, right? Because a 2% increase over 2 weeks looks completely different than a 2% increase over 6 months. And what if the engagement increased, but it's not necessarily new engagement? It's just that one or two people that work for the organization that's kind of commenting on every single thing that you put out there. So it has to be very specific. And already off of this one goal, you can see the amount of questions that come up. So you think about, okay, in the evaluation process, what does that really look like? And this is what happens: clutter. It's so muggy. You can't even see the questions. You can't even really see the data. You can't see the goals. And so we're already off to a bad start. And so what we want to do is make these goals smart. And we're going to take this one goal and we're just going to kind of walk through it. And then we're going to see how metrics adds up to this one goal. So we want to work smarter, not harder. And this may be a refresher for some of you, which is the SMART kind of framework around goal setting. So we want to make it specific. And when making it specific, we start to think about the 5 W's, right? Like writing a press release or, a grant or anything like that. The who, the what's, the when, the where, the how, or the 1H, right? And the why, okay? So who is involved? What am I trying to accomplish? What does it need to be completed? Or I'm sorry, when does it need to be completed? Does it need to be completed in 6 months, 1 year, next week? Where does it need to take place, right? On social media? Does it need to take place on all the channels, on Facebook, on your website? Does it need to take place on a digital ad campaign that you're trying to put out there? Why is it important? Consider the specific objectives you are trying to accomplish and then put that into your goal. Then we want to look at, okay, let's make it measurable by developing a criteria to measure your project, because really metrics don't matter if you don't have a way to measure it. So consider how much or how many you are trying to achieve. And what you want to think about is your target market that will allow you to accomplish that goal. You want to think about, what number do I need to get to say that, okay, I'm done. I've been successful in achieving this. Then you want to make it attainable. You want to think about, is it realistic? Is it achievable? And then you want to think a little further than that. You want to start to think about, does the person who I expect to complete this task, whether it's me, whether it's my staff, or whoever it may be, have the skill set to do so? Because if not, that's going to be a major hindrance. And they may be the ones that need to go out and get the additional education so that they are able to successfully complete this. And like I said, I know I was there, right? I was doing the activity, but I didn't necessarily have the skill set to say, okay, well, how can I put this in a measurable format? So then I can go to my board and say, this is what we achieved. This is what we need to change. This is why I need my budget. And this is why you should keep me, right? Save my job, right? You also want to look at, is it relevant? Does what you are trying to address, does it address the organization's end goals? Or am I just saying, okay, this is what I think that we need based on the organization, and so I'm putting it out there? Does it fit into your immediate and your future plans? It may sound like a good idea, but if it does not match your organization's goals and it does not fit into your immediate plans or your future plans on where you're trying to go, then don't even waste your time with trying to track it. You already have so much things that you could be tracking and things that you can do. And that's where we get into that loss of resources. So you don't want to go in that direction. And then lastly, you want to look at, is it timely and is it time bound? And the things you want to consider is it the right time to actually be doing this activity, this marketing activity? And a prime example would be, okay, I want to advertise an event for 100 people that's going to be in person. Well, COVID may not be the proper time to do that. So that's why we say, is it the right time to do this? What is the anticipated timeline? A lot of times people want to rush to get things done, not taking into consideration all of the intricate activities it takes to set up a campaign. So it's not only putting on the event or going after the sponsors, but planning out your marketing campaign. So you want to make sure that you have a timeline associated with your marketing activities. When does it need to be completed? Whether it needs to be next week, next month, next year, 3 years from now, That should all be in your marketing plan. And then, is it time sensitive? Am I able to meet the deadline that has been given to me? So if that is the case, then you want to go back and look at, is it attainable? Because if the deadline is so tight, it may not necessarily be attainable. So you want to think about these things and you want to write them out and you want to put that towards your goal. And then this is what happens. You take that initial goal of increase engagement on my social media channel, and now it looks like this. Double the engagement on Facebook over the next 6 months by publishing one interactive poll, question, or contest each week. It is specific. We can clearly see what we are trying to do, which is double the engagement. So whatever that social media engagement is now, whether it's mentions, shares, posts, likes, we need to double that number. Where we're trying to do it, because each platform has different tractions and different target markets, and each platform may be utilized for different things. For instance, I'm not going to use Facebook the same way that I use LinkedIn, where Facebook is more of a fun, get your information out there. You have groups, people can talk about anything, and LinkedIn sole purpose is for business connections. So you want to take that into consideration when you're establishing a goal. Each platform may need its own goal. Your website might need its own goal. Your digital ads will need their own goals. And so after you've done that, it is now measurable, right? Because we have benchmarks that we can look at and say, okay, anything above this will be some type of success. It seems achievable because you should already be posting on your accounts. So you may only need to switch some of the content out as opposed to adding new content on your content calendar. It seems relevant, right? Or I assume it's relevant to the company because you need to, or you want to expand and develop strong relationships with your followers and increase overall engagement with community members. It's also an opportunity to develop leads. And if the organization wants to expand their brand awareness, it allows you to do that. And it's timely. Everyone is right now looking for engagement opportunities. And because a lot of people can't necessarily get out in the normal ways that we used to do that, focusing on online lead generation, this would be the perfect time to do that. And we know that we have 6 months to do that. So taking COVID into consideration, you start to think, okay, we have 6 months to do this. I'm not necessarily sure, everybody's going back to school and doing all this, if we'll be where we were in 6 months, but I have 6 months to take advantage of this online environment. And so what happens is you're able to then start looking at this goal and measuring the traction that is occurring within those 6 months. And you do that by establishing the metrics that are directly correlated with this particular goal. And so we have poll participation, we have comments, shares, mentions, and then also post likes, which are just some of the things that you can look at in regards to this particular goal. All right, so you can start on a high level. And since everyone's goals may differ depending on what the organization is trying to accomplish, here are just a few items that are kind of commonly tracked that you may want to consider including in your marketing efforts. And honestly, you could probably just Google marketing metrics that I need to measure, and you'll see tons and tons of things that you can measure. What the goal is that you need to choose the proper metric that will go along with tracking your particular goal. And so you have to be careful, right, of vanity metrics. And you see a lot of vanity metrics with social media in particular. Because vanity metrics are those metrics that they look flashy, but they don't necessarily tell you anything. So you can kind of look at a vanity metric and say, well, it doesn't necessarily lead me to take a course of action or make a future decision. And a prime example, taking into consideration our goal that we had just went through, is social media. Looking at likes and followers on your Facebook page or on your Twitter page. It looks good. It makes you feel good. You have 1,000 followers. If you have like 5 followers, it may make you feel bad. So it might not necessarily be a vanity metric to you. But You don't want to focus on that number so heavily because you have to take into consideration that just because they like your page or just because they're following you in some format, they may never be actively engaged with you. They may never see anything on their timeline that has to do with your organization. And that is no fault of yours. That's just the platform's algorithms that are just kind of pushing you out of the way. So, what you may want to consider is looking at other things that you can track that will have a larger impact. So, how many comments are you getting for your post? How many reviews or mentions are you getting? Those are the type of things that you should be measuring, because that is what will show you if engagement is truly happening. How many shares of the post? Rather than page likes, look at your post likes, because that means that people are actually seeing the message and they're interacting with that message. And then outside of social media, you have other things that you can consider, right? So if we look at your website, we're looking at conversion rates. I love conversion rates because it really tells you if people are taking the action that you want them to take so that they can move to that next side of the buyer's journey. So let's say you have 200 page views in a day, but you want to look at what is the bounce rate associated with those page views, or better yet, the conversion rate, right? How many of the 200 are taking action on that web page or on your website? Are they clicking on a link? Are they filling out a form? Are they initiating a chat? Did they click to look for directions? Are they giving you a call? Because now you can just click on the website and click. You want to make sure that your phone numbers on your website are all clickable because everybody's on their mobile devices now, right? So can they just click the number and then make a phone call right from where they are? What about the entrances to that web page versus the exits? You can see that, okay, well, on my website, I have a lot of people that are entering on this one page. So I might want to include a little bit more content in regards to this one particular subject. But then as they go through the website, yep, when they get to this other page, they jump right off. There is something on that page that they may not necessarily be interested in that you may need to reconsider or restructure to make sure that you're including them in the conversion, that that they're taking the action that you want them to take. Now, if it's a contact us form and page, and you see that they filled out the contact us form and they jumped off, well, then they're just probably leaving the page. But if no action was really taken, do you even have a call to action on the page? Are you telling them what you want to do? Those are things that you need to consider. And that is what metrics will tell you when you start to look at the numbers to say, okay, they're getting on the page, but they keep jumping off of the page. So you might want to look at your entrances and your exits in regards to the page. Then you can also look at your calls to action, or let's look at virtual events since I have that on here. Let's say you have 500 users registered, but out of those 500 users who are registered, because we're excited, we have 500 users registered. I only have space for 100, so I'm using Zoom and I only have space for 100, so I'm going to live stream everything on Facebook and YouTube, and it's going to be great. But then here's the kicker. How many people actually attend the webinar? So is it at a time and date that, yeah, they're interested in the topic, but the time and date may not be a time and date that is feasible for people. And people who are doing online events, just to let you know, research shows that Thursdays in the morning, like around 11 or 12, are the best days to do like webinars or some type of online event. Hence us being on here on a Thursday. So take that into consideration. But, are they staying on to the end of the class? If I see that, or the end of the webinar, if I see that there's a major drop in participation, then maybe the class isn't as engaging or the webinar isn't as engaging as I think it is. Or maybe there's something that in the future I might want to consider to move. So I want to look at that participant number and how long that they've stayed on the particular webinar. The other thing about registering is, yeah, I have 500 people that registered for the event, but only 150 got on. Well, did I have a call to action that gave away a gift card when they registered? Maybe I need to keep that gift card to the event because now they have their gift card and they're on their way. And maybe I need to keep that gift card to the end of the event because you don't want them jumping off at the beginning of the event. So metrics can kind of give you a deeper look into how those activities are being affected when you're doing them. And then call to actions, right? So we have views. Let's say you tell people, okay, well, I want to have a download on the page. Let's say we have a white paper or an ebook, and there's some type of download that's a generator for information. Do not give information away free. If you have something like an ebook, or let's say a market, I would say in my industry, right, a one-page marketing plan, or something statistics associated with your organization, something that you know that these people are going to be interested in gaining, make sure they're filling out a form for that, because then you can track it, right? You're seeing whether they're converting over, if this is something that they're really interested in. And now you have a lead generator. They're filling out the form to get this. And you wonder why every time you go to a website, you're like, oh, I got to fill out another form to get this information. It's gotten to the point you're just so used to it, it's automatically generated. Your information just populates into the forms. But it's because they're grabbing your information. And then what questions are you asking on those forms? That can tell you that the people that are interested in this particular information, what's their job title? What industry are they in? Don't make it too long, because you don't want them to go through an interview just to get a form. But those are some of the things that you can consider. If they're actually taking or clicking a link to obtain the information you want them to obtain. And then where is that location? So these are all things that you can consider and that can be measured so that you can make adjustments where needed to reach the goals that you're trying to reach. All right, I know this is like a lot of information coming towards you. So definitely if you have questions, please make sure that you stop me. Because after you grab that information, you have the metrics and everything that's coming your way, you have all of these numbers. Now you have to have somewhere for it to go, right? And so the question comes in, well, I know what the metrics are. How do I track them? How do I make these metrics work for me and my organization? And so the goal is to feed your data into some type of dashboard that will allow you to easily sort through items and see comparisons and evaluate your findings. So some options could include, and there are a number of options. So if you guys use something that's working for you, please put it in the chat so we can make a note of it. Because you guys might know something that I don't necessarily know. But common ones that I see people use include Google Analytics. And then separately, I didn't know if you knew this or not, Google has a data studio, which will help you visualize the content. And we'll talk a little bit about visualization in a minute. HubSpot marketing analytics software and CRM. Like I said, I'm a big fan of HubSpot because it pretty much allows you to do the content inside of the platform and then track it as well. For those larger organizations that may be utilizing Salesforce, there's a section called Pardot that you can utilize to track. This is not like Alexa, tell me such and such, but there is a system called Alexa, which will also help you develop those type of dashboards. And then some items actually have dashboards that are built in for tracking. So you think about your social media platforms or even your email engagement. If you're using MailChimp or Constant Contact, those type of platforms already have the metrics built in so that all you have to do is click on it and see what metrics you want to follow. And it will start to tell you, okay, well, this is your open rate. This is your click-through rate and those type of things. So again, if you guys have any additional ones, please put them in the chat box so that we can take a look at them because there are tons of them. But I say definitely give these a try. I know that Google Analytics, HubSpot, Data Studio kind of give you free options as well. And then there are paid options for those who are a little bit further along in their analytical journey that they can pay and get even more information from. So don't overwhelm yourself. Start with one goal and then some particular metrics that you want to follow, and then try to utilize these systems to track that one goal and expand from there. Luckily, a lot of the areas we covered, such as the website, your e-blast, your social media, all have trackable items that are already attached to them. But then you also have those others that don't have tracking with them. So then you have, for instance, ads on vehicles and I'm trying to think of other things, your press releases, different items like that. What you can do, or print ads, PSAs, what you can do in those cases is attach a specific phone number to them, a landing page, or a discount code or a donation code in this case, or whatever it is, some type of code or word that you would use, that then you can track that so that you know when someone is coming in and they're calling in or they're visiting your website, or they have a question and you ask them a particular question. Sometimes say, sometimes people will say, do you have a code at the bottom of that ad? And then they'll read the code. You know that the action that they're taking is directly related to the campaign that you've established. This is also tracked online when you have to put in the discount codes and things like that. They know that, okay, you went here, or this particular ad was what got you to make the action or make the purchase that they wanted you to make, if that makes sense. So consider adding specific. Don't use one phone number that you use for everything. Like, don't use your main organization number, because there's no way you would be able to track that because everybody's calling that organization number. Set up one particular phone number. It could be a Google Voice number, I'm not sure. Or if you have the ability to add lines that go with your campaign, and then once that campaign ends, then you can utilize that phone number later on. So if you do have an ad on a rolling vehicle, or you have a billboard up, or whatever the case is, when they're calling that number, that's directly associated with that billboard or that bus or that car. Or if you have a landing page attached to a press release, that when they're clicking that, yep, this landing page, this was directly attached to that press release. And now I know that that press release is working, and you can measure the traction from those items. Let me see. So at this point, you should have an idea of metrics that matter. But then we also need to go into the evaluation phase of how to look at that data. And I also want to put Excel. So a lot of people use Excel, but Excel is more of a manual input, so it takes a little bit longer, and I'm all about being automated. But Excel does come in handy later on, and I'll show you where that is. So in evaluating your findings, you want to look at certain things. You want to look for spikes, such as an increase to your website traction. So you consider, okay, the Nonprofit Institute. I'm sure that there was some type of increase to the website traction because in February specifically, because of this conference. So the data will help you see what page people are going to, and then you can determine, yep, we had a virtual conference, so that's why the traction increased. And you can think about what is causing those particular spikes. Did you put out an ad around that time? Was there nothing going around that time? And so you started to see a dip in the engagement. Those are things that you will start to see as the information comes together and you start to do a little bit of data visualization. You also want to look at historical data. Start doing comparisons from month to month or year to year. So I used to work for a fuel oil company, and we knew specifically that when summer came, it was dead. And so we had to create, because nobody's using heat, right? There's no reason for them to use propane in that manner, unless they're cooking out or something like that, but it would drop tremendously. And so we had to address that with campaigns that would create engagement during that time, so we wouldn't lose people during that lull of services. We know that enrollment for schools go up during the fall, it might shoot down during the summer. So there needs to be some type of campaign or engagement in the summer so that we don't lose that momentum. And that's kind of how you can use those tracking mechanisms from month to month or the year-to-year comparisons to enhance your campaigns. And these drops will also have a direct effect on your marketing, because your marketing in the fall may not look like the marketing in the summer if you're a school. So just some things to take into consideration. Just as you report on services, grants, and finances, utilize your marketing data to tell the story of where your organization is going. And it will help you assess where you need to start, stop, or what you need to continue doing. So the metrics will really start to work for you, and they will tell you where you need to invest your dollars, what your target market is, and where they're looking so that you can reach them directly. And also what actions will help lead to success. you can generate reports that will allow you to create positive change in the organization simply by using metrics. I'm just going to talk lastly about data visualization and kind of what that looks like. Data visualization, when you're using your dashboards, you see all these charts and things like that, will help you tell your story. It's basically a graphic representation of the information you have. So it can unlock those trends that we're looking for, those patterns, and it can do that by just looking at the glance of an eye. And so if you are doing reporting, some of the top three things that people use are bar graphs, line graphs, and pie charts. So with your bar graphs, they're good for highlighting comparisons of different metrics, comparing quantities, or seeing categories in ascending and descending order. With line charts, they're best used to establish progression over a certain amount of time, or establish a relationship between two specific variables, right? Because you're able to stack the lines on top of each other and specifically see how they compare to each other. And then pie charts are good to use when showing percentages, or you have a total that needs to be divided into parts. And there are others that you can utilize. So you have tables, which organize information to show relationships. And this is where Excel can really dominate, because if you can master pivot tables, you can start to move the information and really see the effect that it's having at a quick glance. There are also area graphs, which combine line graphs and bar charts to review trends. So it kind of is like a double duty. They review trends over a progression of time. And then heat maps are good to utilize because they utilize color codes to distinguish hotspots. So for example, if you have a web page and you want to know where the most engagement, let's say you have links all throughout your web page or calls to actions, and you want to see where most of the traction is occurring on that particular web page, you can utilize a heat map, which will kind of color code the page to let you know, okay, when they get to this section of the website, this is a hot hitter. So I might want to put all of my information that is very relevant in that section. And I also say, when it comes to your website, make sure that you have a little tidbit, make sure that you have all of the information towards that is very relevant towards the top of that particular page. It's kind of like your press releases, like that first paragraph, you just kind of want to give a synopsis of the information you have, or like if you think about print news, above the fold is what they call it, because as you start to go down, you start to lose traction. Then let me see what else we have. Yeah, so that pretty much covers data visualization, and you can start to see how the matrix matter and then how you can utilize them in the different components that you have within your goals. So just to recap, as we come down to the wire, looking back, you can grab metrics that you think will work for your particular organization goals. And you want to start by looking at that strategic plan and establishing a plan around those metrics in particular. So go back to your organization's strategic plan and line up your marketing actions with the goals that the organization is trying to reach and those objectives, and make sure that they intertwine. Then you want to take what you have and you want to make it measurable. You want to make it a SMART goal. You want to make it specific, so you know exactly what it is that you're doing. Definitely measurable, because if it's not measurable, then there's no need for metrics, right? You're not measuring anything. You don't need those metrics. You have no use for them. So making it measurable, making it attainable, making sure that it is relevant and that it's timely. And then you select the metrics that matter for your particular goals. You discover what those key performance indicators are that will say, okay, this particular item is working or is not working, and it might need change. That information has to go somewhere. So you want to dive into your data through some type of data dashboard that will help you collect the information. And I will put out there again that if you can get something that automatically does this, like a lot of the different platforms already have, then that will be phenomenal. For instance, you don't want to, if you have a phone number attached to a car, for every time somebody phone, and I've seen it done this way. I mean, you can do it. You know, if you have a call center, they might track it, you know, one notch. How did you hear about us? Oh, you heard about us from this, that, and the other. Or if they call on this particular phone number, then you're making a notch for every time you're calling. But you may want to check with the company to say, okay, can these phone calls be recorded? And can I get, just like you get a phone bill, some type of form or something that will show me how many calls are coming in off of this one number. That might be a little bit easier than this, just kind of tracking or counting the coupons as they come in. If you have digital coupons, you can utilize like the coupon code or things like that. Or you may have something in your system, right? As opposed to keeping track of the coupons, because in transfer of those coupons, are they really all going to get to you? So you might have something in your end system to say, okay, well, if they click this button, then it's automatically letting me, I know that at the end of the day or whatever, I can run a report and it's telling me how many coupons were used. So think about how to automate these processes and make them work for you. You want to make sure once you have the data that you're able to evaluate your findings. And then you just want to, after you evaluate, repeat the entire thing over and over again. Look at your goals, see how they've changed, change your metrics if you need to, make sure you're evaluating them, make your decisions, look at your goals, maybe, you know, change them if you need to. It's a repetitive process. And then you'll start to see the successes and you'll start to develop that data that you can then compare the way you need to. So once you have what you need, you can make data-driven decisions instead of using intuition to help drive and reach your goals. So if you're not started already, definitely please start today. And with that, that's pretty much all that I have. I hope that you got at least one thing out of this training that you can take back to your organization or utilize in your marketing efforts. And as always, I am open so that if you want to contact me on the app, if you want to contact me on LinkedIn, whatever the case is, feel free to dive into my bio, leave me comments, and I would be more than happy to talk with you. Also, please make sure that you fill out the evaluation for this class, because I would like to come back and you may not want me back. I don't know. So definitely let us know what you think about this class, because it is a matrix class and I'm trying to gather that data to see if something needs to be changed so that when we do this in the future, we can see what worked and what didn't work. So thank you everyone